The next one we want to talk about is the include guard keyword. So sometimes when we have the header file, or remember the .h file, we call that the header file, or we call that .h file. The name of the file match the class name exactly in the spelling and the case. So the class array, usually you have the array.h. So the same thing for this week, we will write static array class. So that's why your header file name will be the static array.h. So to be accessible to the main program, a copy of the header file needs to be in the same folder as the main program in CPP. Or a lot of time you guys using the IDE, right? So the IDE actually when you run the header file with your associative CPP file, you need to make sure they're both in the project. So for this class, most of the time, actually since from this week, your homework assignment, you will need to submit couple CPP file and one header file, one .h file. So the .h file is kind of also one source file. So you need to make sure your programmer identification should be in the first two lines in the comments. And also, most of the time, be careful, your header file shouldn't have any cout because no output should to print out in the header file. So after we have the header file, of course, you know how to use that from the CPP file. We have the include keyword. So this # include statement is in the main CPP. So you did many times, right? Since beginning in 110, you will include square bracket iostream square bracket. So that you will include the default library file from the C++ compiler. But this include statement, really, how they really include the library? Actually, they only see this include statement from the compiler. They just simply copy and paste the content of the header file into the CPP file when they are compiled. So that will put the number of functions above the main. So sometimes you have the C or C++ library. The library name, of course, they're using the angle bracket if that's the default library. Then if we have a user-defined header file, we will using the double quote. So one thing is sometimes you see you include one library file. So this library file maybe include other library file. So one thing you need to be careful whenever, because they do the copy and paste, right? So if you include one header file twice, actually they will be copy and paste twice into our CPP. So then you will say, what that's matter? That's really matter because if you copy and paste twice the same CPP file, that means you copy one function twice. So then when you really, after you copy and paste, right, then your compiling will fail. Because if they see the same function implemented twice, they will have the error. So that's why here we will introduce you that we call the include guard. And also I already see many of you already did. So maybe in the prior class you already talked about that. So that's include guard is actually we say the # if not defined, then # define, then and if. So this # if and end if are not really the C++ code, but they are compiler directive. So compiler will recognize that. So how we will do that? So we see, for example, here. So this one is, for example, we have our array template class. So here, from now on, if you have any header file, in order to make sure they won't be included twice, so we all need to have this include guard before and after. So usually they will say array underscore h. Okay, so usually we're using the all uppercase. So here we should change to all uppercase. But you can decide how you want to do. So what we will do is we will see if not defined, because here we define the name, right? So if this array underscore h never been defined, so compiler never see this one yet, good. So then we just define array underscore h. Then from here, all the array class template class implementation, we will define as this directive until you see end if. So if this array underscore h never been used, so then we will define from the content for the header file, we will define as array underscore h. So if the first time we see the include array h, right? So they will see, oh, I don't have the array underscore h, so I define that. But the next time, if they try to include array.h again, so then we will see if not defined, but array underscore h already been defined. So that's why they will skip that. So this one we call the include guard. So some of you already have that, and also we need you to have that from now on. So then you see here, the content of the h file is contained between your pound sign, if, and if. So then, okay, so actually is not if, it's define, okay? From your define and your end if, it will have involve a programmer define a flag. So this flag is earlier we said array h. So this array h kind of is the flag what we will have the content of the header file. So if not defined, tell the compiler that flag is not being used yet. So then the compiler will have define a flag, then compile the code between it and its matching and if. So the compiler allows multiple includes the same h in the same CPP file. But because we have the include guard, after the first time, if not defined is found, the flag gets set. So then later on, they see the flag is set, they will be skip that code. So from now on, all the header file you submit, you need to input the include guard. So on the other hand, we go back to see here. Earlier, we finished your lab exercise 3, right? So that's why here, when we have our lab exercise 3, remember, we don't have anything, we don't have the include guard. But now we need to add that include guard. So that's in your homework assignment, your static array.h. So in the static array.h file, so before your class implementation, we need to put the include guard. So then we have if not defined. So usually we're using the header file name static array underscore h. So then we're using for that flag. So we define the flag, then you will see between the define, then all your content for your class implementation will be covered. So then at the end, you have the end if. So that's the include guard.